Doc, I remember when I was a kid growing up, and I would hear about these because this was never in. This was like in Chicago. You hear about it in L.A. You hear about it in Detroit. And I remember when my grandmother, my grandfather would watch something like this on television. The first thing they would say is, "What did he do to cause the police to do that?" Right. And now that since we've had the advent of cell phone, we know now there was a lot of times they didn't do anything to justify dying. They didn't do anything to justify the treatment at the hands of the police in the street.
I so disagree with you. Let me tell you what they did. They breathed. They breathed. They existed. They were black and speaking. They were black and human. They were black and had the nerve to look at a cop. They were black and had the nerve to inhale and exhale. They were, and my God, don't get to the point of, I can't breathe, let me breathe. Oh my God, you're off limits. And I'm being facetious, Brother Shannon, but you know, you're absolutely right. There is no provocation. There is no, thing that they've done to precipitate or warrant the kind of nastiness, the vicious reprisal, the hatred, the taser, the gun, the stun gun, the rubber bullet, the baton, nothing. You and I both have been subject to that. I know I have been, I know you have been. I mean, for no good reason, stopping us, throwing me against the car, calling me the N-word, putting a gun to my head, knocking me on the ground. And I'm a well-behaved Negro. I'm not one of these causing no trouble, And what difference does it make, though? The ones who, quote, cause trouble get treated the same way as those who don't. So you're absolutely right. No provocation. And what these films show, and I get so upset with some of my white brothers and sisters. I wish he would just obey. Let me show you the white people who didn't obey. You mother, and we saw that the other day. White boy right. getting in his truck. And the man was there with the gun. If that had been right. Negro, pow, 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 pow. Yeah, they would have held his white t-shirt and then shot him in the back 7 times. I know that would never happen. That a cop would hold a white t-shirt and then right. shoot the guy 7 times. And God bless him, he lives, but he's paralyzed from his waist down. White boys, white men, white girls, white people, white women, white folk with impunity. They have qualified immunity, it seems, themselves. That no matter how horribly they misbehave, most cops are not going to over-respond, shoot them, or engage in other nefarious and violent activities that will cost them their lives or make them more vulnerable. I've seen white boys with machetes, right? I mean, literal white boys. I know I don't want white men to get upset. Is he calling us a white boy? My God, it's equal. I'm talking about white boys under 17. I've seen white men with machetes and knives come at police people and have no reprisal, no consequence. They try to talk to them or they run. I've seen cops run.
I saw that.
You saw that.
Yeah,
the cop gets in the car and runs because he's so afraid, because he doesn't want to hurt the person. And you got the gun. You could have shot that person. So we know that there's a different standard of perception. We are existing in different universes of perception, rotating on different axes. And we saw this in the O.J. Simpson case. Y'all saw one thing, we saw another thing. Y'all hear this, we hear that. And never the twain shall meet. And I'm afraid we haven't progressed too much more even since then in 95.
Doc, why is that they're able to show such great restraint, as you mentioned it, when dealing with our white counterparts, as right. opposed to us? It's hard for them. And the thing that it burns me, it makes me seethe, is that when they say, I don't see color. Stop lying, because if you don't see color, you don't need to be a policeman. You can't drive because that means you're colorblind, and you run stop signs and you run red lights. So we know that you see color.
Yeah,
so just acknowledge that you see the color, and the stimuli, black skin versus white skin, triggers something different.
It's a collective unconscious. It's muscle memory. I wasn't joking when I said this tracks back to 1700s. If you've been doing that stuff repetitively and repeatedly, over a couple, 3 centuries, it's deeply ingrained. And then you pass on those stories and you see what your grandfather did and your great-grandfather did, and they tell you stories, and your great-great-great-great-grandfather told your great-great-great-grandfather and your grandfather what the deal was, and they pass that on to you. It's a collective inheritance. It's like the Declaration of Independence. It's a document that articulates noble ideals. And in this case, it articulates ignoble ideals. And people absorb that stuff, man. And as you said, the stimuli of the skin, whether it's conscious or not. And at this point, what difference does it make? Whether you are unconsciously biased or consciously biased, the thing is, you still got the same results. Your intentionality doesn't exhaust consequence. What your intent was. My pastor used to tell me a mosquito don't want nothing but blood, but it can end up giving you malaria. Its intent, draw blood. Its consequence, fill your body with malaria.
Right.
So the reality is that many of these cops don't even understand that when they say, I don't see color, first of all, you lying, as you said. Secondly, if you don't see color, that means you don't see responsibility. Because if you saw racial color and racial identity, you'd have to see the way in which white and black and brown and yellow have been mistreated in this country or treated differently. That white people have been treated differently than black, brown, red, and yellow people. So how convenient. I don't see color. Oh, when it comes time to taking care of your responsibility, I don't see color, so therefore I don't believe in affirmative action. I don't see color, therefore I don't believe in reparations. I don't see color, therefore I don't believe in compensating for historical forms of oppression that have been directed toward African-American people. So how convenient. When you don't see color, you don't see responsibility. You don't see culpability. You don't see complicity, and you don't see how you've benefited from being a white guy or a white woman for 400 and some odd years. So when you don't see color, it's a way of denying your responsibility as a citizen of these United States of America.
But Doc, how do we get them to see when you brought the slaves here in 1619 and you told him he was less than, you treated him less than, you robbed him of his dignity, you robbed him of his humanity, you put him in chains, you said, this is what you are. And then you told him, no matter what, you can never be equal to. Roger Twain and Dred Scott said a slave can never be a citizen. That's what he said. Plessy versus Ferguson said you can have separate, we'll do equal, but it's got to be separate. So it's like when I tell people a TV is only going to be a TV because that's what we've been told for 75 years. That's what it is. Well, if you tell someone they're less than, they're treated less than for 400 years, how do you ever see that person as equal to?
You can't. That's the point. And people try to deny it. They try to put it away as a fallacy or a mythology. It's not true. It's not real, but it is. How you going to tell folk all of a sudden to treat people like equals who were never seen as equals? The people who were never seen as, regarded as your peer.
You know what to do. Hit the subscribe button to become an official member of Club Shay Shay, where we always do something for two something.